Today's episode is Stalin is comically large spoon.
Hey, dog, get some
grain.
only a spoonful.
No, unironically, we're probably naming it something else. It's just the name of the fucking doc. But yeah, the general idea of today is a lot of the time when you're first introducing socialism or you want to discuss socialism with somebody, you'll get a few NPC lines. It's funny how, I don't know, socially ingrained it is in people to ask the same questions over and over again. It's the same set of like 12 questions.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they've been answered time and time again and are very easy to find answers for if you Google or ask around. The first contention, the very first thing that you hear, usually it's a 1, 2, 3 combo that's delivered. It is iPhone, Vuvuzela, 100 million dead. Let's deal with iPhone first. The general idea is, they'll say, but your iPhone was made under capitalism, and the intention there being is that capitalism fosters innovation. It's where, all this comes from.
My favorite part personally about the iPhone packaging and all the Apple packaging is how it says in the nice sans serif font, designed by Apple in California. It's like, okay, where was it made?
Yeah, the general point, just to really speed run this, the idea of, your iPhone was made under capitalism, these systems don't produce anything. It's workers under every system that produce the commodities or goods. The system just determines what or who gets paid, how the division of the surplus value takes place. Under capitalism, the vast majority of the surplus value goes to the capitalist to reinvest into the circuit of capital and also to subsidize their consumption. Meanwhile, under socialism, the bulk of the surplus value goes back into the population directly through remuneration, as well as into a general social fund, which can help the development of the nation or area, what have you. That's the fundamental difference. The vast majority of the technology that goes into computers and your phones and pretty much
the iPhone specifically as well,
daily life.
over 70% went into the OG iPhone.
Yeah, is government-funded military research. It was public spending based on your taxes that developed this. Capitalists had enough starting capital to come and just take these various things and put them into one basically unit, and then knew how to market it really well. Now, the second one, which is Vuvuzela. I think we can quickly TLDR this in Venezuela, or pretty much every other socialist country, whatever issue you may have had with it, look at the underlying conditions, and the vast majority of the underlying conditions is, number one, it's usually a third world imperial periphery country that already started off poor. Number two, it's victimized completely by imperialism. It is economically sanctioned, it is embargoed, it is diplomatically vilified, it is even militarily attacked, etc., etc. So when you try to do everything to prevent the development of a nation, you can't also turn around and then point at it and be like, hey, it's not doing as great as it should be. And the vast majority of these nations ended up doing way better than you'd expect, especially with all the limitations set on them.
One way to push back against this, because it's super easy to say, like, all right, look, if communism fails every time it's tried, just let it fail. Why the need to meddle? Why are we in all these countries trying to pull the rug out from under them if it's going to fail anyway?
Exactly right. Why did they need to murder hundreds of thousands of suspected communists in Indonesia by the way, which didn't even have a revolution? It was just kind of the movement was building. Why did they have to mass murder such huge amounts of people with direct American involvement if socialism were to just, kind of crumble on its own?
They killed all those people to save people, man. They killed all those people to save them from socialists killing them. It's like, dude, the socialists about to
perfect sense.
Now the third and final part of this trinity, the 60 Gorillion dead, or 100 Gorillion, or 150 million, whatever the fuck. The number increases every time we see it.
The easiest way to deal with this is like, all right, so those deaths are always attributed to communism. Why is it that the deaths that occur in capitalist countries are never attributed to that economic system? Because there are a whole lot of people dying under capitalism. Let's take COVID, for example. The United States has the highest death toll of anywhere in the world. It's insane. We're going to hit 1 million dead this year, most likely, from COVID, just because of our terrible response, because we needed to, quote unquote, save the economy. So those people died on the altar of capitalism.
Please, you're conveniently forget. Of course, the liberal commie conveniently forgets that COVID is a Chinese conspiracy to spread communism. It's the Kung flu. That's fucking.
They did though.
Jesus Christ!
The
I can't
victims
believe
of
the US
communism
president said that.
I know, it's insane. The
Sorry,
Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation added all of the deaths of COVID to deaths attributed to communism because it started in China.
It's a very stupid argument because every death that's anybody who stubs their toe under communism is listed as a death. Meanwhile, tens of millions around the world end up dying from malnutrition or starvation as a direct result of capitalist distribution policies, and these are never counted into, that's just like, oh, how the world is. Number two, the 100 million figure comes from a notoriously unreliable book called The Black Book of Communism, which was, by the way, it's disavowed by like half its authors now.
And
the main author,
wife,
who's the only guy that stands by it to this day, pretty much, had this like fascination of getting to the 100 million mark. So he would even randomly add like 2 million deaths here and there. Like he would see a number and be like, you know what, this can have a couple of extra zeros on it.
Yeah.
That's the level of honesty we have. Counting non-births, like the birth rate goes down, or fertility rate, excuse me, and as a result, all those people who would have been born, but the woman decided to, use contraception and not have those children, all of a sudden those are considered deaths. Counting Jews who were murdered by Nazis and fascists as deaths of socialism. And finally, which I find the most hilarious and the most mask-off moment, they count Nazis, dead Nazis, as victims of communism and as part of the death toll. I don't know about you, but to me, the more dead Nazis, the better. So this one, I really want to hear JT's delivery on this.
Oh boy.
Yeah, if it's okay with you, Habibi, could you please let people know personal property, private property, just public property, is that, if you have the energy.
Absolutely. It's 100% the same thing. I'm going to come take your Dora Band-Aids and your Funko Pops and your Paw Patrol toothbrush and call it a day. This morning I had to explain again to a commenter, it's every single week, the difference between personal and private property. I'm like, all right, if it produces capital for you, if it's like on private land, say it's a factory or a hotel or some agricultural land, and you use it to generate capital, that's private property. If you have it in your home, if it's your sick skateboard with the Jigglypuff deck, or if it's your vintage GameCube controller with the C-stick worn off, or, if it's your Donkey Kong amiibo, that is your
Dragon dildo.
Personal property. I really like Donkey Kong amiibos, so that one I might take, but other than that, you're good.
And of course, to always shoehorn a Marx quote, private property has already been done away with for 9/10 of the population. Yeah. Vast majority of people have no private property to their name. At most, you might have like an apartment or a home. Don't be the temporarily embarrassed millionaire. You're never going to join the fucking Elon Musks and Bezos of the world, nor should you want to. You are sadly a filthy worker like the rest of us, and that's why your interests lie with the abolition of private property rather than the maintenance of it. And of course, your own personal property you can maintain. There is a point that we can just also quickly zoom through, which is, but there is no competition under socialism. How could we develop the miracle of the aforementioned Funko Pops and cock rings and butt plugs without competition? How would you know which one has the best fit? How would you know?
And I can tell you from my personal fucking corporate experience, the reason advertisers exist, the reason repackaging and constantly faster releasing is a thing, is because the capitalist producer understood that he doesn't have to sell you radically improved products, but instead can slow down the process and incrementally give you piece by piece, so you end up buying 7 phones or 2 cars instead of 1. They know what they're gonna be spoon feeding you in 2028 and have the tech to sell it to you now, but they don't, because literally competition in capitalism does not allow for net productivity jumps in the short term. Everything has to be stretched out because that's how you make more money.
Yeah, basically. This one's actually a favorite of mine, and if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to take it. It's Communism, no food. All right.
Yeah.
If iPhone, Vuvuzela, and 100 Gorillion dead is the Trinity, then Communism, no food is the archangel that delivers the holy gospel of I don't know, fucking trickle down economics or whatever. First of all, the vast majority of malnutrition and starvation happens under capitalism, not under socialism. Number two, and studies have been done on this. The particular one I always like to reference is Sarasota and Waitskin, the 86 study comparing the physical quality of life between socialist and capitalist countries. One of the factors they checked was caloric intake, and they found that all socialist countries met at least 100% of caloric intake per person of the population, while this was definitely not the case for capitalist countries. The other aspect of this is when they mention communism, no food, they really are mentioning very specific periods in, for example, Soviet history, one of which is, for example, the 1921 famine in the USSR, USSR. This basically took place when the fledgling Soviet Union was a country that was just founded. It was besieged from all sides. It was invaded by 14 countries and in the middle of a horrific civil war, and was sanctioned and wasn't recognized basically by any country. And then with all of this, all these factors come together, and then they'll be like, oh, communism, no food. But you're not actually looking at the material basis of this. This is not a daily experience or a representative, this is the absolute worst a country could go through. Compare that with most third world capitalist countries, which have pretty much a sizable portion, especially of the child populations, which is malnourished, even up to like the UK and shit, which has I think like 10 or 15% of rate of malnutrition, which is a first world developed imperial core country. Capitalism doesn't fare better in this. Basically, the worst that socialism would have is almost a regular existence of capitalist countries, particularly in the imperial periphery in the third world. All right, now here's my favorite, and I'm going to shut up for this one. I want to hear everything you guys have to say about this. Human nature. Human nature, Vuvuzela, iPhone, 100 billion day communism, no food, human nature.
Yo, why are those people farming without a profit motive? What the hell are they doing? Fuck off.
Oh, fuck. They're hunting and gathering. What? All right, please, geez. Serenade me.
I don't know what... if capitalism was human nature, why did it take so long to develop? Why hasn't it been a thing for more than, 300, 400, 500 years? The vast majority of human history has been communal. People have worked together to achieve common goals. And it's only this recent perversion of what people think of as human nature, this greed to accumulate at the expense of all others, that has become the status quo by virtue of just overwhelming force, just dominating the rest of the world.
Most social philosophers from the beginning of time have debated, and almost none of them agree on what the definition of human nature is, or more importantly, what is our human nature. And a lot of them, again, even to make it more complicated, don't even think there is such a thing as human nature. You can't, this has been debated, and there is no concession on this for literally thousands of years. And you fucking Jimmy from Wisconsin come in here and you want to fucking dominate the conversation about communism can't work because Hooman, natuurr. What the fuck do you know, bitch? You don't know shit about human nature.
One you've heard, it's so boring at this point, but communism, no democracy. And then, the guy turns around and is like, oh, what's that? Get back to work right away, boss, who just also happens to be the owner's son. And then, he scuttles with his tail between his leg to, I don't know, go blow the dude who's promised daddy to stay off the pills, so he can pull in $400,000 while basically sitting in a managerial position that he doesn't fucking nothing on. Do you guys want to take this one, or?
Obviously, it's just objectively false. But even pick the most antagonistic people you can to disprove it. And so that would be the CIA. They had a report on Stalin specifically, talking about, the whole strongman dictator myth was largely a fabrication. Even under Stalin, there was significant democracy in the Soviet Union. If the CIA is saying that, what do you have? What defense can you possibly have? It's just absurd.
The presentation that you see in the media or in history books, usually bourgeois history, is very flawed, because the concept of democracy that they have not only is different, but it's an even fuller democracy. And you can always compare it, of course, to your own country, the United States, who claims to be the most democratic country on earth, the freest and all that. But I'm just asking any American, when was the last time that you've actually participated in the democratic process? For the vast majority of Americans, they have one option only to participate, quote unquote, democratically. It's during the presidential elections, and that is where they are forced to choose between two people that they didn't want in the first place. Members of the Senate and Congress. Many of them have served ridiculously long times with no it's who has voted these people in and who's maintaining them in these positions. And of course, not to forget the most important aspect, you have practically no political democracy, but you have absolutely no economic democracy within the United States or any capitalist country. You have no say of what to produce, where to produce, how much to produce. You have no control of your workplace. You have no ability to fire your manager or get them in trouble if you want to. There are countless examples of, for example, within the Soviet Union. By the way, again, nobody's trying to say the Soviet Union is a perfect system, but we're just trying to compare and contrast here. Countless examples within the Soviet Union in which you had basically a manager who does something fucked up. Either he embezzles funds, or he even sexually harasses or attempts to sexually harass a worker. And they basically just go to the party committee, which was in every workplace, and they tell them, hey, yeah, this happened. And then guess what? The manager gets fired. right? They almost always sided with the workers. And that's something that doesn't happen in the United States.
They really don't even want us to vote, like even once every 4 years. The amount of voter suppression we've seen, the gerrymandering, the voter ID laws, just making it incredibly difficult to even cast a ballot should show what the elite think of even electoral democracy. But you're absolutely right. The economic democracy is a far bigger problem.
I mean, every social model which has ever existed, from, I don't know, the first one that we know of that used the term democracy in ancient Greece, had the same democracy applied to only 5% of their population. You know, the rest were poor or slaves or women. And the neoliberal democracy, not ancient Greek democracy, but the modern neoliberal version, just like the Greeks back in the day, they apply the democratic values to things which do not question the status quo.
None of us are saying that the democracy practiced in former socialist countries, even current socialist countries, are perfect, but they made genuine attempts at developing a new form of democracy that's more expansive, and they made massive strides in that field. And also, we need to remember that this is also currently an ongoing process. You have to remember that all former socialist countries, and even modern socialist countries, have had the supreme issue of imperialism, of constant military harassment and diplomatic vilification and economic sabotage and military threats and everything to the end of it. Trying to practice an all-encompassing and unlimited democracy under these incredibly strenuous conditions is, I think, naive to expect of them, and also sadly would weaken the internal security of the state. And as a result, we end up, of course, with these contradictions of developing socialism, in which, like, we want to have all-expansive democracy, but at certain levels they have to be limited. For example, you shouldn't be able to give democratic rights to, I don't know, like fascists, for example. Landlords shouldn't be able to come together, band together, and make their own little group and vote and stuff. Maybe in a more mature, developed socialism that is less threatened, this can be done away with, but as things stand, we always have to be pragmatic about our approaches. Not be dogmatic, of course, and just try to replicate what happened before, but also be pragmatic. Now let's get to a more fun one. Basically, I remember this was one of the first things that I would hear. So a chat comes up to you and you're talking about socialism. He's like, but under communism, you're just gonna, in the middle of the night, you're gonna get a knock on your door, and then the KGB will come and they're just gonna lick your balls. They're gonna take you into a dark alley. They're gonna lick your balls. They're gonna suck on them too. They're gonna be very kinky, and it will be very uncomfortable for you, unless you're into that. In which, well, I mean, all power to you. But what do you guys have to say about the KGB coming and licking your balls in a dark alley? Of course, it has to be in the middle. They always say knock on the door in the middle of the night. It can't be at 2 in the afternoon. It can't ever be, it's like, lunchtime, right? Like a more convenient. It always has to be in the middle of the night.
I mean, that is true. That will happen. Yeah.
I just heard, in my head, I just heard the fucking cyberpunk music. The second he said, it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, that's gonna happen. But I was gonna say, this is a weird reference to the Great Purges in the Soviet Union. This is something that is not exclusive to socialism, number one. I've seen many more cases, for example, in the United States, where basically a cop enters a wrong apartment and then shoots a random person sleeping in their bed. Maybe this is fucked up to say, but the people who that happened to in the USSR maybe at least would have been somewhat guilty of some crime, at the very least.
Yeah. No, but even
in the US, you could just be...
Even in an argument that they weren't, and oh my God, the KGB and the local police killed so many innocents, arrested so many innocents. If all of those quote-unquote horrible arrests, which happened, for example, in the Soviet Union, should be applied to communism as a whole, we should also look at the victims of capitalism in the country, which has the largest prison population to have ever existed. And with all due respect, in the 60s, in my opinion, already a bit too late, but in the 60s in the USSR, the last gulag was closed. In the US, you literally still have prisons utilizing slave labor, and you dare sit here and talk about the authoritarian fist coming down on people's freedoms. I mean, it is, but maybe you should look up because the fist is right above you.
There's another one which is so fucking boring, and I'll let you take this one. Socialism was unpopular everywhere it was tried. Just ask the people who live there. Yugopnik, please ask the Yugoslavs. Ask the Yugoslavs.
Yes, as someone who literally knows thousands of people who have lived through Yugoslav-style socialism, those who have spent the majority of their life in it almost exclusively talk positively about it. Many who even have managed to become even capitalists and become even rich in post-Yugoslav era of early capitalism, and at this point very sped up late stage capitalism, if you can even call it that. Some of them also nostalgically look back at the quote unquote good old days, and I've heard people literally tell me, I wish we lived in whatever it was before, because the world wouldn't have turned me into the person that it had to turn me into in order to survive. There's a joke we have here that the harshest capitalist is an ex-communist, because a communist knows how capitalism works and therefore understands that he needs to eat before being eaten in order to survive. Almost every listener, I believe, of ours has seen all of those maps, both in the Soviet Union, in Yugoslavia, etc., where we very eloquently and directly see from Western sources that usually it goes between 60 to 80%, depending on the region and usually how wealthy the region is, that we're against the destruction and the abolishment of the previous economic model.
The only thing I can say to our American listeners is also the people who say this sort of thing, like, oh, all the people, like, they hated it. They hated living under communism. All right, who told you that? Those people, 90% of the time, they live in Miami. You know the type of person that it is. It's like the only people who say they hated living... Yeah, exactly. The only people who hated living under socialism were the ones that were trying to take advantage of people, and that wasn't allowed. Most people who experienced socialism would like to go back to it. They look back fondly on it, and they do not care for this awful alternative that we've been offered.
I think we can take these last three very quickly. I think we can just do quick fire for these. Commies, come in for my guns. If it's okay, I would like to share three quotes. The first one, of course, is the beautiful quote of Marx, in which the whole working class must be armed at once with rifles, cannons, and ammunition. Any attempts to disarm the workers must be frustrated by force if necessary. That is our dear bearded Santa Claus. Another absolute Chad, Mao Zedong, had this to say: "It is only by the power of the gun that the working class and the laboring masses can defeat the armed bourgeoisie and landlords." Of course, let's not forget that he also was the one to say that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. How can somebody be so based? I have no idea, but he manages. He always manages. And finally, my own personal beloved Lenin, who said, "It is most urgent and essential that there be a universal arming of the people." And of course, Lenin, as you know, was also wrote about people's militias, amongst many other things. Practically every socialist country that existed had some sort of popular militia. It had education for the population for the use of arms, for the cleaning of arms. They had access to arms to differing extents, but you could definitely get them. Communists are never there to take your guns. Communists are there to basically put guns in the hands of the workers and hopefully disarm fucking, fascists and Nazis and those types, because those people don't deserve to be armed. But the best way to disarm those people is moving on, this is my favorite one because I get this all the time. Commies only exist as white upper middle class university students.
Well, I mean, 1 out of 3.
Yeah, I mean, 1 out of 3 is white.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing else.
Like Hakeem mentioned earlier, the vast majority of communists around the world are not in the United States or any associated imperial core country. They're in the developing world. They're in Asia. They're in Latin America. They're in these places that are very much not the image these people try to sell of like blue-haired liberal college students. That's just not reality. Well, it just goes to show that the average American's conception, the world is the United States to them. There is just no conception of what's outside these borders.
As Yugopnik said, everything else is DLC.
Yeah, very apt.
All right, I'm going to throw you a low ball, one that's quick, and this is the final one. Under socialism, all housing is ugly. You're going to be living in gray, bleak, okay? Don't look at our suburbs. Gray, bleak. Okay, number 1, a home is better than being homeless.
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, historically, the housing that was built was rapidly built to basically make up for the lost housing stock of World War II, which destroyed massive amounts, entire cities and villages and everything. Literally millions of people displaced and homeless, so these people need very quick housing. They didn't care if it was fucking pretty or not. Third of all, the vast majority of it at its time when it was new and maintained did look pretty good. You can pause this fucking episode now. Just go and type Yugoslav apartments or whatever, or like apartments Moscow, whatever, 1979. Just put in a random year where it was actually socialism. Most of them were painted nicely, they looked brand new, they were maintained, they looked nice. Under socialism, there's an economic plan. Under their economic plans, all this housing that was built rapidly to make up for lost housing stock wasn't meant to stay indefinitely. This was housing that was meant to stay for 25, 30 years and then allow for development of, to bring up the economy again so that they could build more sustainable housing down the line. An annoying little thing got in the way of that called the dissolution of the Soviet Union that kind of prevented that. So that's why they're still in like 50-year-old housing that has not been maintained whatsoever, because, hey, guess what? The reason those places look like shit is because of capitalism, not fucking socialism.
TLDR, now we have more money and technology to build free housing for everyone if tomorrow the socialists would take over. And secondly, me as someone who has grown up in one of those horrible gray buildings and who now lives in a brand new building, I can tell you my heating bill was much better back then because they used actual fucking cement. The building I live in right now has been built for profit, and all of the apartments are being given for rent. So the guy building it wasn't building it for himself. So did he save money on everything? And do I have paper walls? And do I have to listen to the 90-year-old grandma next to me shit liquid diarrhea every single evening right next to my ear where my bed is positioned? Yes, I do.
These are all, pretty good arguments, guys. Not bad work. But really, you're forgetting the most important thing. If you want to talk about gray, soulless, pathetic buildings, look what they're doing to my McDonald's, to my Wendy's, to my Taco Bell. Have you seen what they're doing to my Taco Bell? Oh, which way, Western man? Do you want to go to these friggin' the little lifeless modern box looking things, or can we get some of those nice like green and blue swirls back, please? Come on, where's the life? Where's the joy?
This is an experience I'm very glad that I don't connect with.
The one defining staple of American culture, which is the fast food chain restaurant, has also now been lost to the eternal pursuits of the market.
This is what they took from you, white man. This is what, the Happy Meal is what they took away from you.
Us communists guarantee you free, readily available chains of fast food, which will be very, very colorful. Just come to our side, please.
And with all this said, that's about it. Don't forget to report to your local CBT station. All right. The party demands cock and ball torture, and the quotas need to be met. Okay. With all that said, have a lovely time. This has been Hakeem.
I'm JT.
And I'm Ugopnik.
Don't let the KGB lick your balls. That's all for this time. If you enjoy what I do, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help. I'd like to thank my patrons, so thank you too.